right, that was a rough start to a podcast. I've never had anything like that happen to me where a guest showed up and I was not ready whatsoever.
Oh,
Yeah,
how good for me. I'm the first.
you're the first, and hopefully you're the last. So, anyways, how are you doing today?
I'm very good. Thank you.
Good. So tell me a little bit about yourself. You're originally from the Lansing area?
Went to Waverly High School. I still live we moved back. We're only a few blocks from the high school now, so I've been there 40 years.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So you've never moved out of the Lansing area? You've stayed.
Never. Yep.
Do you love Lansing?
I do.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about yourself. I know that you signed up for the podcast for a reason.
It was
You're an
intriguing.
artist?
Yeah, it was intriguing that you were looking for people with doing interesting things. So
Yeah.
I had just done what do they call that? Studio 10.
Okay.
I just done that show. I hadn't heard of that show. They came to the shop and we did a live segment with them. And then I had a few students from MSU come and were working on a project and watched me carve at a couple of events. And so then this popped up and I said, well, let's just keep this train rolling and see what this is.
Yeah.
This is like. Sounds fun. I've never done one.
Yeah, and the train came to a halting stop as soon as you walked through my door.
We started up again. We're good.
Yeah, we're good. We're definitely good. Now tell me what it is that you do. I know you make ice sculptures, right?
Right.
What is that process like? That's interesting. Did you send me a message? Because I'm pretty sure when you sent me a message, I was like, that is interesting. I want to talk to that guy.
I don't remember.
I don't remember either. I don't remember if I seen it when you signed up. I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. Or if you sent me a message and I was like, that sounds interesting.
Okay.
But
yeah,
what is that
I don't
process?
remember if we responded. The ice we use is made for carving. It's not water put in a mold, and then I have special machines that make carving blocks. And so that takes 3 days to make a carving block. So those machines get rid of the air bubbles, and so that makes the ice more dense and makes it more sturdy, durable, 300-pound block. So we've got the block, and then depending on what the temperature is, my studio's in my garage, so I don't have controlled temperature. So when it's cold out, we don't have to worry about it. But when it's warmer, the ice can be temperamental if it's not tempered. So
Really, why would that be?
So I have learned a lot of things the hard way.
Yeah.
Making mistakes. I guess that may be our theme today. Can't do that anymore. Don't want to do that again.
No.
So we start with the carving block, and then it's a design. So sometimes the client has the design. Sometimes they tell me their event and come up with something, so I do that. So
Now, I could imagine that's a pretty big niche, right? Like as far as there's not really too many people doing it.
No one in this area but me.
Wow. What is that like? Is it?
It's a culinary arts. When I started, I was a chef. That's how I learned.
Okay.
Lansing Country Club, and so the only place you get an ice sculpture was at a place where a chef that knew how to carved.
Wow.
That's the only place. And so still to this day, most ice carvers are culinary trained, also worked in the culinary field. But so there were, 10 guys or so in the area that did ice when I started the business.
Wow.
And we did and so I know that number because we put on an event at Woldemar, a competition, and so we found these. So there were probably more than that. There were 10 guys there to do this competition.
Wow, that's crazy. Now, how did you get into that? You said you were a chef, but were you interested in carving? Like, was it something or did you just kind of find yourself doing it? What led to it?
Well, it was at Lansing Country Club. So we, the general manager was a Culinary Institute grad, and he did all the ice. And we had a busy Christmas season. So New Year's Eve, the staff was standing around, and he said he'd like some help. Anybody want to help? And I said, I was thinking in my head, I'm the new kid. Certainly somebody's going to grab that up and know what he did. I said, well, yeah, I want to try that. So we did that first one for New Year's Eve. We did 4 carvings for New Year's Eve. This is in the 80s. So we did that first one. He did most of it, but he let me take all the bows, and so I felt pretty good about myself. And and he turned me loose, and then the next one, nobody could recognize what it was, and so it was about a year before people could. I could really say I was getting better at it. That people could walk in the room and think it was decent. So,
what was it that you were carving? What was the first thing that you carved?
A vase was the first thing I carved.
Wow. Like an actual usable vase.
They put flowers in it, right?
Wow.
Yep.
Now, when you're making these, how long do they last? Obviously, you're making it for an event, typically, right?
Right.
And do they just melt away?
Well, we talked about the process of making the ice. It also melts slower. It lasts longer than just if I were to just freeze water. So somebody has figured out it melts half an inch an hour at 72 degrees. Does that help?
Sure.
So they will look really good for like a wedding reception, 5 or 6 hours.
Okay. Wow.
And some of that ice would be around the next day if we left it.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Now, have you done any like major competitions or anything like that of that sort?
I did go down to Plymouth early on a few times. That was when I started, that was the event in the area, in the country. It was one of the largest ones, one of the first ones.
Wow. Now, is there a lot of people that use that, order from you? Do you find a lot of people ordering?
So all those chefs that I talked about carved ice. So, now that I'm doing it full time, I can do a better job than they could. They started calling me.
Wow.
So
they just kind of farmed out their work to you.
It started with the chef at the Kellogg Center hurt his back, and so I was supposed to help fill in with the ice carvings for a few weeks because they, at the time, were the wedding place. 15 years ago or so that was. And
this episode is brought to you by Red Bike Delivery. This delivery service operates only using battery-powered, eco-friendly transportation. Red Bike Delivery is there for all your delivery needs, whether it's dinner for the family, flowers for your partner, or new houseplants for your new collection. Red Bike Delivery will gladly deliver those and everything in between. So what are you waiting for? Check out Red Bike Delivery on Facebook or Instagram for more information. Red Bike Delivery, because there's only one Earth.
So I was only going to do it for 3 weeks, and then when he was ready to start up, one of his assistants said, "You should just let him keep doing it. You got enough to do." So we just kept doing it. So we did 5 or 6 or 7 a weekend there. So
holy cow,
that was just for them.
Wow. And do you have any employees?
I have people I use part-time.
Okay.
So a lot has changed. It's kind of crazy how things have worked out. We're not, I don't do as many weddings anymore. Some wedding planners have told me it's not the it thing anymore. So,
really? I feel like it's very unique. Like if I would have known about your service, I probably would have had you at my wedding.
So we do a lot of outdoor events. We just did Potter Park in downtown Lansing in February. And so we've done a lot of stuff out of town. So like a 50 to 100 mile radius around Lansing, we've gone and done events.
Wow. That's cool. That's really cool.
So I hire people to help me with that. So I have a nephew that's, Zach is, he doesn't want to learn carving, but he loves being the muscle guy. So we joke about that. I'm the talent and he's the muscle, and he loves to drive. He's a mechanic. And so he loves doing all that. So it works out perfect. So
very cool. That is so cool. So you kind of keep it like family oriented.
I have. Yep.
Yeah. That's very cool. And it teaches people a skill as well, like a very unique skill.
Yep. So we did teach at LCC for a while. They had a culinary program.
So if somebody wants to get involved in something like that, they have to go through like a culinary program, right?
I just did a class at Mount Hope Church one time for like artists. Okay. So there were people that were interested, and I said, if you want to know more, I'd be happy to teach you. Now, I've always offered this, but a few people have taken me up on it. So I think with many things that people say, well, I could never do that. Well, it took me a year to get good at it, but I didn't. I kept going because I enjoyed doing it.
Now, do you have like artistic abilities? Have you always kind of been artistic, like as far as drawing and stuff?
I've been asked that a lot, and I didn't think that I did. But I do come from a family that does creative stuff.
Okay.
My dad was a carpenter, and my mom always did crafts, and I have grandparents that always did stuff like that. So I guess I've been around it, but I never thought of it. I was challenged with being called an artist for a long time because I guess I had a idea of what artists are like, and I didn't think I was like that. So
What did you think an artist was?
I don't even think about them as other. I was doing it as part of my job. It was just part of my job, and so I like that creative. And really, cooking is a creative art in itself.
It really is. Yeah.
I didn't think that was really that much different than.
I think the spectrum of artists has kind of changed over the years too. Like probably when you got started in the 80s, right? Was it in the 80s?
Yeah.
Art was kind of looked at as like being like maybe a musician or like a painter, drawer, somebody who draws or does animes, that type of stuff. But now it's like literally everything has an art form to it. It's pretty vast. Right. The category of art.
Right. And so I've got a lot of Facebook friends that do all kinds of weird stuff. So, when they were all locked in, some guy was eating a peach, and he got to the pit, and he said, I bet I could carve that. So he carved a face or something in it. So he was selling carved peach pits online because he couldn't do ice or wood or whatever he was doing. So it's just kind of crazy how guys get into other things. So
yeah. Is that something you found yourself doing, carving like wood or anything like that?
I've done a few.
Yeah. Is it difficult, more difficult than ice?
I thought it was going to be much more transferable to wood.
Okay.
There's no grain in ice. That was something to learn. There's no when you get logs, there's no nails in ice to mess up your blade. So the process is a little different. It's harder. Ice is easier to carve when it's warm. But the techniques, I guess, are very similar.
What kind of tools do you use to carve ice?
They're all electric or power tools now, so we're switching to some to battery. But
so like
chainsaw, die grinders with different router bits. There have been bits made for ice carving. Some guy said, I want to do this, and there isn't one. So there's guys that make bits now.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
That's so crazy. Is it something that's gotten bigger, like in the United States? Would you say? Yeah.
So I
that light just went out. That light's a pain in my butt. Oh boy.
So when I first started in the business, I was the only place I knew of to buy tools was out of a company called Ice Crafters out of Chicago, and so she had a pretty good handle on ice carvers around the world and what they were doing, and so she said I was probably one of only 50 companies in the country when I started.
Wow.
And now there's, I don't know how many there are now. It's just crazy, the number of guys. Somebody said that there is more carvers in Michigan than anywhere in the world, and that greatest concentration is around Detroit. So
really?
Yeah.
Why is that?
I don't know.
That's interesting. Is it because we have winter here and it's a little easier half the year?
Probably. So there are guys, yeah. So I know a couple of guys that carve in like Miami, and they don't even attempt to carve in the summer.
Oh, okay.
But they are busy enough in the winter that I guess they're able to coast through the summer. And
Right. Yeah, that's insane. I couldn't imagine doing that. Yeah. I want to see the process. I wish I had a TV we could pull it up and see.
Just trying to think of some place to send you, but I don't know any links right offhand.
Yeah.
Studio 10 did come out and do a live. We did a live carving.
Have you ever thought about doing like a YouTube, like live, not live, but like record what you do and how you do it and put it on like a YouTube channel?
I haven't. I know that there are guys that do, but I just guess I never thought about.
You should definitely do it.
Okay.
I really think it could draw like attraction. I mean, I find myself interested in like wood carving and things like that. Whenever I come across on YouTube, I'm like, I stop and watch it.
Yeah.
And ice, I mean, carving ice is even more interesting because not many people do it. I haven't seen it done that often. The lights are like crazy.
Okay.
I wired these lights in, and that one gives me issues. And when it goes out, it makes the other ones
wonky.
Yeah, and I got to see that one just kicked back on.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry.
Stop saying it. You're okay.
All right. So, yeah, you should definitely do a YouTube channel.
All right. I'll think about it. I'll check it out.
Yeah, you should. Um,
Maybe you could help me.
yeah. I mean, what would you need help with?
Doing it. I don't know.
Just throw up a couple cameras and then, I don't know, time
push
lapse
record,
it.
huh?
Yeah, push record and time lapse it.
Okay. I'll definitely have to look into that.
Yeah,
because now we're slow. So
okay,
this time of the year, so for me, it's slow since we're not doing weddings as much anymore. So
yeah, I would highly recommend it. I mean, because I mean, you get so many followers and everything. That's another revenue source eventually, you know. So
okay,
yeah,
who can't use more money?
Exactly. Now you don't do many events like competitions anymore, right?
Right.
So
they're all on weekends, and so I'm pretty busy with my own stuff when those are. So those usually happen in the winter, of course.
Yeah.
And so my weekends are pretty full with my own.
What kind of things do you sculpt? What kind of designs do you do?
Well, Potter Park, we just did their animals.
You made animals.
Yeah, the animals that are actually in the zoo, they send me.
Wow. And are they the full size or are they a smaller version?
Yeah. A lion and the tiger and the rhino. And
that's cool.
And we've done that 2 years now. And so we've done, I think, different animals every time. So,
wow.
So I enjoy doing that because it's new stuff to me. I like doing new things.
Yeah.
So when I just did this class at Mount Hope, they were asking me questions, and I said, I did a swan, and I said, so the swan, I've probably done more swans. I'm sure I've done more swans than anything. I've probably done thousands of swans. And when we were at the Kellogg Center, they had a list to choose from, so we might do 5 swans a weekend. And I kind of got tired of it, so I kept changing the design to keep myself interested. So I like doing new things. I like the challenge of the new things. We did just did one for CMU, a student-run fashion show, and they had a logo designed for it, and it had color in a circle, but there were red flame, blue water, a black something, green for the earth, and so all this, and so we used colored cellophane, freeze that in the ice, do the carving around it, and that was very challenging. Something I hadn't done because it was 4 feet by 4 feet, quite large.
Now, what happens when you're a good way into a project and it doesn't turn out properly? And then is there a point where you ever decide I have to restart?
Scrap it? And
yeah.
Start? No, I don't think so.
Really?
Well, I'm sure there was in the beginning, but not recently.
So you just kind of, do you make many mistakes or do you correct your mistakes if you do make them?
See, that's our theme today, right? The mistake.
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess I have never focused on the mistake because I know I've screwed up, but I've never focused on the mistakes because I've got a job to do, so they're counting on me to do this, so I figure out a way to correct the mistake, so I'm not focused on the mistake.
Mm-hmm.
And so we did. You're reminding me of. We used to do the freshman orientation at MSU, and so it was a big deal on the practice field. You know, thousands of kids there. They would get we do 4 or 5 carvings for them, and we did. I had some guys helping me, and one of them did not. So we drove the truck on the field and dropped one off and moved the truck, and so I had to unstrap the ice to get one off, and then move to the next one. Well, whoever was doing this didn't strap it, and so the S fell over, and it was in these big pieces. In my head, I'm thinking it's never going to go back. You know, we do design things to go back together. The ice will freeze back together pretty easily usually, but that block S is such a big, heavy thing. So when it broke, it broke where the top, and I said, that's never going to, in my head, I'm thinking it's never going to, but we're here. What else are we going to do? We might as well try.
Right.
So I was shocked when it did freeze back together. I was, so it really kind of changed everything from then on to there's nothing that's really impossible then, is there?
Yeah. And
so
that's awesome. That's awesome that it went back together.
Yeah. So many pieces in that, so big of pieces, and that had to be, crazy. I just, So that has happened a couple of times where I thought, well, that's too busted up to, oh, look at there.
Now, is this something that you've ever, I don't know if it's possible, but have you ever looked into getting your artwork or your creations into like Art Prize? Is that something that would be possible? Because
Sure, there's a company in Grand Rapids that I think does it. I don't know if they do it every year, but they've done it several times I know of.
Okay.
So that I think they rent a freezer truck and
Oh, that's a good idea.
and put a plastic panel on one wall or something so you can see it.
Okay. That's a really good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. That'd be cool.
Again, I think that has always happened when I'm already busy. So
how long does it take to make something whenever you're, let's say, like you were making a, was it like a flamingo you said?
Oh, yeah.
Like how long does it take to make something like that?
Probably 45 minutes or an hour.
Really? How big is it?
3.5 feet tall.
Wow.
40 inches by 20 are the blocks. So.
And do you pull up pictures? How?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't. I might freehand it on the ice, but I'm referencing something.
Wow.
So some stuff I will make a template. So
Okay.
depending on how. Like when we just did the logo, I'm not trying to freehand that. I make a template so I can have reference lines to carve around.
Okay. Wow. That's crazy. That's cool. That's so cool. So beside doing the ice things, we've talked a lot about that. Tell me a little bit about yourself. What other things are you into? You're from the Lansing area. You own your business. What is the name of your business?
Miller Ice Sculptures.
Okay.
And I work out of my house.
Okay.
I didn't have a garage, and so we had. Whenever I think of my story, I think how crazy it is that I was at the City Club when I started. When I left there, I had no place to carve. I had no, and so here I am trying to do ice sculpture without a freezer. And my wife worked for the Feta brothers. They owned Fratelli's, Frank's Press Box. Been a lot of it. So she was there a long time. They let me use their freezer for a while, but they are too busy with too small a freezer, so it wasn't ideal. But it did work for a short time. And then we went to the Holiday Inn. They had just put in Friday, so they weren't really using their facilities that much. So they said I could use their freezer.
Wow.
And so we did that for a while. So it meant I had to drive from home to there, pull the ice out, drive back home and let the ice temper, come back, do the carve. It was a lot.
Oh my gosh.
But I was appreciative I had a place to do it. I mean, but thinking back, I said, that's just crazy.
It's not ideal.
And then some guys in Owasso said they could build, somebody told them they need to make carving blocks. And so they had an ice company. And so they said, we can build a better one. So they built the ice machine out of junkyard scrap or something, I think. And they were in refrigeration and construction. But so I was buying ice from them, and they said, we don't want to keep doing this. We're going to provide you with a freezer and let you sell. We sold a lot of carving blocks to these other guys that were still carving. So they put a freezer on my patio. And then as things were getting bigger, I was looking for a space, and a friend of mine said, what you should do is build a garage, and that way you don't have to have a lease, and just build it big enough to put studio in the back. So the back wall is a walk-in freezer. And
wow.
So a lot of times in those early days, right after that was built, I would come home and open the garage and see all this stuff that I said, that is just blowing my mind. That I always thought, that's too impossible. These ice machines are $5,000 each. And
right.
And I've got a couple of those, and I've got thousands in tools. And it's just, I was just so thankful and just
it's so amazing.
Overwhelming.
It's so amazing to be able to like think about where you started in life, because I oftentimes think about like where I should be in life, like, based off of like my past and everything. And I think about like, if I hadn't got hired, if I hadn't been hired at General Motors, like where would I be? I probably wouldn't have this house. I probably wouldn't have my family. None of it.
Right.
And it's interesting to like just sit back and just like look at like where you started and where it's gone and where it's currently going.
How'd you get into this?
Into podcasting?
Yeah.
I just started doing it. Yeah. I wanted to share my story. And I figured that, well, first off, I tried reaching out to like other podcasters. And then they canceled on me because they're very unprofessional. And
okay.
and yeah, so So then I thought, well, I'm not the only one who wants to share my story. I'm sure there's other people, because I've talked to other people and they're like, I would like to write a book about my story. And everybody says that, I want to write a book, but they never do because they don't have time. And podcasting doesn't take that much time, like it's an hour. And for me, it's an hour or more, depending.
Right.
And so I figured that'd be a great opportunity for other people to share their stories too. And yeah, it is what it is now. So,
well, that's why you have the name Rising Podcast, Rising Above.
yeah.
I guess that's what was intriguing because that's how I felt.
You were able to rise above where you had started from nothing.
Because how I got started, I felt like I was I was forced to resign my position. I was dreaming of doing ice sculpture, but I said, I've got a wife and we had 4 grandkids that we were taking care of. I said, I'm not doing enough on the side to provide for that, so right. I can't see how that can happen.
Yeah.
And so here I am trying to do it, and this is, thinking back and looking, it's just crazy how God provided and took care of us. And
it's a leap sometimes that you have to make, right? Like, oh, that light is irritating. Hold on, I'm gonna take it down real quick.
All right.
Yeah, sometimes you just have to take a leap at something, whether or not like you're going to be successful. That's always the scary part, right?
All
like,
right.
You don't know if you're going to make a living. You're not sure if you're going to be able to provide for your family doing it. But you know that if you work hard enough that you can make it work.
Well, I tried to get rehired as a chef, and in the circumstances where I left the city club, I could not get hired anywhere.
Really?
I had guys referring me that there's openings in Grand Rapids. I was calling all over and I could not get.
So they were like giving you a bad name?
It was like design. I'm glad that it happened now. In fact, they called me back a few years, 3 years later and said, hey, we made a mistake because there's some things that happened. And they said, we made a mistake. Would you consider coming back? And I said, if you'd have called me a year or two ago, in a heartbeat, but not now. We've kind of broken through.
Right.
It took about 3 years, but living below poverty, it's just that's why I say it's just crazy to see how he did it. And we used to pick up a widowed a pastor's wife. He passed away. We used to pick her up to take her to church, and she didn't have any money. She was on assistance, and she said, I got to give you something. So she gave us, government cheese and powdered eggs and stuff she didn't want, the rice that never quite gets soft. But we did have stuff to eat. We didn't go hungry.
Right.
But the kids still talk about those powdered eggs. They thought they were the greatest thing ever. I was like, okay. But
do you think that going through something like that helps define who you are as a person going forward? Like sometimes, like for me, in order to really appreciate something, you have to understand where it could go. And if you had been in that spot, you can then appreciate some of the good things in life.
Oh, yeah.
I think it makes it easier to appreciate things.
Yeah, people that have never struggled don't.
Yeah.
Just taking things for granted.
Yeah.
That's why I said it. So I don't know how many times that I would open the garage coming back from a delivery and just get overwhelmed when I saw that stuff and just.
And it's easy too, once you're in, you're living fine, you're living high on the hog, you got a good, successful career, business, whatever it is. It's easy to kind of forget and take that stuff for granted. But sometimes you just have to sit back and be like, wow, all this is mine.
Yeah. Be thankful.
Be thankful. Yeah.
Yeah.
So your kids obviously seen you come up, right? They seen you, they seen the lows and they seen the highs and they see where you're at now. What kind of impact has that had on their life?
Well, I kind of have a crazy life because they're not my kids.
Oh.
I mean, they are my kids, but I married into that.
Okay.
My wife is older than I am, so.
How old? Can we talk about this for a minute? Because my wife's older than me.
Yeah?
Yeah.
She's 20 years older.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. My wife's 17 years older.
Okay.
Yeah.
So her kids are only slightly younger than me.
Okay.
So when we got married, I became a grandfather at that time at 30. And so now I'm a great-great-grandfather 2 times.
Wow.
Yeah, that's crazy too, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's what I said. It's just a crazy life.
My
Crazy good.
Yeah, I understand. And that's kind of funny that you say that because your situation's almost exactly like mine.
Yeah.
Yeah, she has 4 kids, previous to me, and I think the oldest is 20 something, and I'm 28. So,
Okay.
so it's pretty close. But the thing is, like for me, a lot of people like, I don't know if you ever had any negative feedback
Oh
from
yeah.
it. People, talking down to you because of it. I get that all the time, but
I had some relatives sit me down and say,
yeah.
listen, yeah. And taking the grandkids, we go to the store. I'm 30 years old, and these are, and they're like, Grandpa, can we get, and people look at me like, Grandpa.
Oh, that's funny. That is so funny. I haven't had that experience yet.
Okay.
But yeah, no.
It's coming.
Yeah. For me, I think age is it's really just a number. It doesn't affect anything. Like, I mean, honestly, I don't even think about the age thing. Like, it doesn't really affect my life at all. Like, other people may see it differently, but for me, it's like, I don't know. I don't think about it any different than.
Hey, for me, my wife is younger than I am. She's a perpetual teenager.
Yeah.
I was always like the old man.
Let's
just stay at home and watch TV. And she was like, come on, get going. And so it's kind of, like you said, it's a state of mind. So she's, she's 80, turned 84 in January. So she still thinks she's a teenager.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's important to think that way because the minute you start thinking you're old, that's when life starts to get to you.
You start thinking you got, people talk about you got aches and pains. Pretty soon you're going to have aches and pains. I mean, that's stuff wears out. Yeah, so yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Has she been pretty supportive of you and chasing your dreams?
Very.
Yeah.
I couldn't have done it without her.
Yeah.
I mean, because she did work in those, first 3 years. We still live below poverty, but without her paycheck. So so as a man, I struggled with that for a while,
Yeah.
So that was another talk that relatives had with me. So
what was the outcome of those talks? Were you just like,
I listened. I mean, they are, I was respectful. I listened to their opinion. I don't think I responded. I just said, okay, thank you. But so I was being called by my family a rebel because I didn't believe in the mask. And it kind of bothered me for a while. And so I look up a definition, and a rebel is someone that sees a wrong and wants everybody else to see it's wrong, and they're kind of angry about it. And I said, well, that's not me.
Yeah.
So a synonym for that, though, is a nonconformist. You see something that's wrong, and you say, okay, well, I'm not going to participate. If you feel like you need to do that, go ahead. So I'm a nonconformist, not a rebel. But so I kind of was hearing that from my family, you don't care. And it's not, but it's hard to even have a conversation. And I'm just using this as an example. And so I've had, because of what you're asking me about with my wife and in business in general, and you should I kept having people tell me I should get a job. You're trying to support a family and you're not really doing anything. And I said, someday. That's what I said. Looking back, it's just things that I've overcome. And so I didn't even really think that I had to overcome that, but I was without thinking about it. But I was just so focused on, I'm doing this.
Right. Do you think that having those conversations with people who should be supportive of what you're doing, and obviously they're not extremely supportive, they want you to go get a job, they want you to just live the normal life.
So they're kind of like the City Club people. Now that once I did break through, then they were all, attaboy,
right,
good job.
Right.
So now they're on board, but and so I'm not trying to make them feel bad that they weren't there when I wasn't.
They just
now they are like on the bandwagon. So
they wanted what was best for you at that time, and they could see that you were struggling, and they're like, why don't you just get a normal job?
See, but we didn't think we were struggling.
Right.
We didn't look at it as struggling. We were eating. We had, well, I guess when somebody looks at the situation, you can say, yes, you're struggling because your car broke down again. How are you going to fix the car?
Right.
So I learned how to fix the car. I learned how to put a muffler on. I learned how to change an alternator. I learned how to, the mechanic said, you should let this thing die. I can't afford to let this thing die. I don't have the money to, so I said, what does it need? And so he rattled off these things. So I went to Schreier's and bought used parts and learned how to put them on. And so, yeah, another thing I said, well, that's pretty cool. I figured out how to do that. Out of necessity. I think a lot of things come out of, so, we're talking about people that always have stuff. So
Yeah.
if you've got the means, then something breaks down, you just send somebody to go get it and fix it.
Right.
But when you don't, it's like, what am I going to do?
Exactly.
And then you have to get creative. And so,
yeah. It's there's a saying, it's iron sharpens iron, and going through a rough situation only makes you stronger, like in all aspects, because you've been at the low, like what it takes to have to fix a vehicle and like just barely make it by. So when you get to the point where you are now, it's like, like any negative thing that happens, any bad, your car breaks down now, you're like, okay, I guess I'll fix it. Or now I have the means to take it in and get it fixed. It's not that big of a deal anymore.
I went through this with my delivery vehicles, and since we had these issues early on with vehicles breaking down all the time, I was always concerned about breaking down on a delivery.
I would be too.
And because there's not enough time to get somebody there to help you unload it, get it loaded, and get it to the place in time. I mean, we're only getting there an hour early, so there's no... So breaking down on the way there, and then somebody said something to me once, and I said, I realized I'd never broken down on the way to a delivery. I've broken down on the way back, but after I made the delivery. So, well, geez, that's right. One time I didn't make it out of the parking lot. I lost the belt, and we didn't get out of the parking lot, but I'd already done the delivery. I'd already done the setup, and so I said, well, that's... I guess I never thought about it like that. It's never happened on the way, always after. Probably happened 4 or 5 times. And then the truck broke down on the way to the delivery. This was just a few years ago. We were doing something for MSU. And so my nephew works on trucks, so he's trying to get it fixed. And he said, I can't get it figured out. I got to get it back to the shop, and there's no way to do that, and still get to the delivery. So finally I call the chef, and I said, we're not gonna, doesn't look like we're gonna make it. The truck broke down, and I don't have enough time to go rent one and get back and get there. And he said, we'll send you a truck. Wow. And we'll send you one with a lift gate and a couple of guys. Is that all right? And I said, yeah, I think that's all right. And so that happened twice. I broke down before, and solutions came. So it was kind of flipped. And so it's kind of, and that was just a couple of years ago. So
wow,
it's like this, like a next level kind of thing. So,
right.
I don't understand everything, but I'm still.
Everything happens for a reason, right? I mean, so many, I think, with today and like the social media and everything, I think everybody has a painted narrative of like what everybody's reaction is going to be to things. We always assume the worst of everybody. But if we really just like you called that, the person that you were delivering that to, and they're pretty understanding, and they're more than willing to help. And I think oftentimes people are scared to do that. And they don't.
I didn't want to call him. I said, what am I? But, he did also have a client to take care of. So, he we'll fix it. Let's fix it.
Right.
So he had the means to fix it. I can send you a truck. I can send you some guys. Okay.
Great.
It's never, wasn't something I would have thought would have happened. It just wasn't in my realm of, well, I'll just call him up and he'll fix it.
Right. Now, yeah,
as the owner, you always think that I got to take care of it. If I don't do it, it won't get done.
Right. Yeah, it's always nice when someone's able to just help you out and not expect anything of it, of you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be, I think, the most frustrating thing about having a business is having all the responsibility on you, and especially like delivering something and having to meet a deadline. I think that would be extremely stressful.
Yeah, so I started, so when we had broken through and we're making some money, then I said, so I can't keep doing there's too much going on for me to try to do everything. So I kind of broke it down. I said, I'm just going to turn deliveries over to a couple of these grandkids and just let them. And it's going to be one thing I'm not going to have to, even though I let them go. I said, okay, they're gone. I was worried about it until they got back and told me everything went well. So it took me a while to, well, it probably took several successful deliveries until I was able to, and so I felt that load lift. That was one section that of the business I didn't have to be worried about anymore.
That's probably one of the hardest things about being a business owner, right? Is like just giving the responsibility to somebody else and just kind of letting go, because I mean, I know how I am with things. Like I got to like kind of micromanage. Like if it's something I'm passionate about, like this is not a business, but like I'm passionate about doing podcasts. And so like micromanaging thing is, except for today, apparently, is like if somebody else were to come in here and like tell me like, hey, I'd like to do this and this, I'm like, no.
It's not how I do it.
That's not how I do it.
Right.
That's got to be difficult, right?
It is. And so I do remember hearing them say, I thought you wanted me to do that, or I do, but I want you to do it. And so I think I get that from my dad, because I was able to go with my dad in the summers, and they built houses. And so he'd say, you're doing it wrong. And so it did take me, but I did realize that and was able to start letting that go. I'm sure I don't all the time still, but
yeah.
Well, yeah, you want it to be perfect, but we have to trust and lean on other people. So I know I've had a lot of help, and I've had a lot of people have patience with me. So,
how many hours a week are you carving?
I've never kept track.
You just kind of do it throughout the day?
Here's what needs to get done, so I do it until, so this last year, so I knew Potter Park. I knew we were going to be really busy in February because Potter Park was successful the year before. In 21, everybody had been locked up for a year.
Yeah.
So we did Potter Park. The place was crazy with people. So they were so thrilled they booked it for 2 weekends.
Wow.
This year.
Yeah.
And so I knew we were in Lansing did the same thing. It was 60 and sunny, so it was terrible for ice, but there were so many people downtown. That was their goal, was to get people out. So they booked for this year, and we did something for Lansing Brewing all in the same few weeks. And so I knew it was going to be crazy. So I started in December.
Wow.
Prepping ice, doing what I could. And we can't keep ice in the freezer for too long. The freezer just thinks ice is a big chunk of frost, so every time it goes to defrost, it's eating your sculpture.
Right.
Sublimation is that term, in
Okay.
case you wanted to know. Just to be informative. So we can't. So there is stuff that I can do ahead. So you can rough out sculptures, and so then they can be finished later. So I started. I knew I was going to be busy, so I started in December. I don't know that I've ever started that early.
Wow.
But just so I didn't have to be doing 16, 17 hours a day, a bunch of days in a row. I mean, I like doing it, but nobody likes doing it when they're beat, tired.
Yeah,
you're not enjoying it, and so I wanted to. So it became enjoyable, but towards the end, it was getting stressful again. But
yeah, I could imagine having to do so many different sculptures, and then I mean, you just get exhausted.
Yeah.
At a certain point, when you're tired, it's just no longer enjoyable.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I've never kept track of how long, but
okay. So where do you see the business going within, like, let's say the next 5 years, or like yourself or your family? Like what's your goals?
Well, it seems like it was kind of forced retirement, for a couple of years. We did a couple of things, but we certainly didn't do much. So it's kind of like forced retirement, and I started thinking about what that might look like. I mean, I'm going to be 63 on Sunday.
Wow, you look great for 63.
Thank you.
I did not guess that.
Ice is a preservative. That's why I look young. So you ought to get into ice sculpture. So I'm just kind of thinking about what that might look like. I've worked hard enough to be in a position where I can. I don't have to take every job, so I guess that's where I've started. Some of these, when you're trying to put food on the table, you take every job. You don't care.
Yeah.
You negotiate price and the whole thing.
Yeah.
I really should be getting this, but if that's all you want to pay, I'll take it. I gotta, I gotta pay the light bill, that.
Yeah.
And so just been thinking about what that might look like. So I just stopped. I guess I haven't stopped. Somehow it's just worked out that I'm slower now.
Mm.
And I'm all right. And so but it is kind of weird to not have stuff on the calendar. So I don't know what might be the next 5. So I guess I'm in transition. Maybe that's why I'm here, to just air my feelings and see what comes out of them.
After this podcast, maybe a bunch of people will order ice sculptures and be like, "No, I'm good."
Maybe that's always been the thing. We have been on TV and in the paper since we started, because like you said, it was a unique thing in the beginning. So
yeah.
And so I used to get calls like, "We're doing a fundraiser, so we can't give you any money, but you'll get great exposure."
Oh, geez.
That's everyone's favorite line.
Oh,
Every
yeah.
artist's favorite line.
Yeah.
You'll get great exposure.
How did that pay out?
Well, so somebody asked me, I think at this Mount Hope thing I did, somebody says, "So, how many referrals have you gotten when people told you that?" And I said, I can't remember ever getting one where somebody said, "Hey, I saw you at this fundraiser and I want to get something for."
Yeah.
I can't remember that ever happening.
Yeah.
But maybe maybe it's plants a seed in somewhere they don't remember that, I don't know.
Yeah.
So maybe they will, maybe they won't. I'm all right either way.
Has this ever been something you've had to advertise?
We did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did bridal shows for a long time.
Okay.
And we were in the yellow pages when those were
back
around.
in the day.
Yeah. And so when I first started, they had a heading for ice in the yellow pages, but not for ice sculpture, not for ice carving or whatever it was called. And there weren't too many under ice, but you need to have a little bigger ad to be noticed.
Yeah.
And so I said, "What does it take to get a new heading ad?" And they said, "We need 3 people to request it."
Wow.
So it was only a year later, so apparently a couple other guys had requested it, so they came up with one. And so I found I could be the only one under that heading in certain areas. And so I got in like a dozen yellow pages.
Wow.
In this 50-mile radius around Lansing. And
wow.
yeah.
That's crazy.
For a few bucks a month.
Okay.
And I did bridal shows and I handed things out. And yeah.
Do you have a website or anything like that?
Miller Ice Sculptures.
Okay.
And a Facebook page.
And soon you will have a YouTube page.
All right.
YouTube channel.
Being prophetic. All right.
I really think that's a great idea. I really do. I really do.
Maybe that'll be the next thing.
Yeah.
Maybe I won't sell them. I'll just make them and put them on YouTube.
There you go. And then
I did have a photographer was doing a few years ago, was doing a worldwide competition. So she just was ordering a spider and was just going to come to the shop and carve it and photograph it after it was carved.
Wow.
And I said, "Okay." Now what do you want to do with it?
You can have it.
You can keep it.
Oh
yeah.
gosh.
So it's just just crazy stuff. See, I wasn't even thinking about that until you brought something up. And so what's next? And maybe that will be.
You could even do like a TikTok. TikTok might be better because people's attention spans are so small.
Yeah.
So like if you just did like a quick minute video and like just a time lapse video of the process and everything, and you did that whenever you made something, that could be pretty successful too.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm always thinking about things like this.
You're hired. I'll be calling you a lot, David.
All right. I'll help you wherever I can.
All right.
Yeah.
Rising above.
Rising above. Yeah, no, I think that, with the way things have gone today, I think a lot of people are interested in things like that, especially like the art like the artist community, the artistic community rather. And then, like I had a guy who his business is called RP Original. He's from Lansing, I think actually Grand Ledge area, but he does woodworking. And I suggested that he do a YouTube channel too, because whenever I see somebody do woodworking, I'm like, wow, that's interesting. Like I love watching woodworking because I do some things, too. And so I get ideas and I learn how to do things from these people. I'm like, okay, I see how they did that. And I would think that somebody who's into ice sculptures or somebody who's interested in doing that could watch your video and be like, oh, that's how he does it. Oh, that's the kind of tool he uses. I mean, it's the same thing for like the podcast. Like whenever I'm wanting to learn how to do something for the podcast, I watch other podcasters. I'm like, what kind of equipment do they got? Like, what kind of lights do they got that don't flicker? Things like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, you should do it.
Okay. I'm going to check it out.
All right, cool.
Like I said, I'm looking for, it's just, I feel like I'm in a weird, for those couple of years where I wasn't doing anything, wasn't my choice, but now it seems like it's kind of is.
Yeah.
So if ice is not coming, what am I going to do?
Right.
I don't want to just, I've watched enough Netflix. I don't want to. There's nothing really,
Well, that's
got to be more. Got to be something else.
Yeah, and definitely, like, if you retire, like you were talking, like, you don't want to just sit around and do nothing, because that's when people start to die.
Well, when I first started thinking about that word, I kind of walked into my shop and kind of heard the word retirement. I said, well, where did that come from? And how would I retire? How would I keep going and retire? How would I keep going and retire? How would I, it just seemed like contradictory to me how to retire. And, my dad retired and he just started doing, instead of building houses, now he was doing, bought a scroll saw and making things. So still working in the shop and kept busy. And his dad, I don't think did. So I just think about people that have retired and they just sit on the couch. Or some people think, I can't wait till I retire. And then you hear these stories about, I'm bored.
Yeah.
I've got a part-time job now or something. I'm greeter at Walmart.
Right.
Something, got to do something. You just can't sit around. We're not made to sit around.
No, we're not.
I have a chiropractor and they tell you that's the worst thing to do.
Yeah.
You need to be, if you're watching TV, you better get up every 15 or 20 minutes, move around.
Yeah.
And worst thing you do is sit around.
Yeah, absolutely. I work at General Motors, and so GM and like the whole auto industry and just being a union worker, they pride themselves on the 30 years and out type of thing.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for me, I don't have that because I'm considered what they would call a 2-tier. So I don't have like a retirement. I just have like a 401k. So essentially, I could probably just retire whenever I want as long as I'm of age. But the thing is, like, a lot of people, they talk about, 30 years and I'm out of here, 30 years and I'm out of here. And then what? What are you going to do? Like, you're just going to sit at home? A lot of these people don't have anything going on. Like, they don't have a business or some sort of hobby that they, enjoy doing. They just plan on doing whatever.
I think they're missing out on so much of life.
I think so, too.
You're just working till you get to 62. Is that it? I can't wait until, I heard lots of my friends talk like that.
Yeah,
they're counting the days, so I know how many hours I got left, and I can't wait. And I said, that's just, so when I heard this, I was like, where did that come from? I'm not even on so I've been thinking about it. It's kind of like I've been forced into retirement because we're not doing anything because of nobody's having any parties, and that's where sculptures are used. So, so it's just kind of changed my approach to the whole thing. So. I guess I'm retired, but I'm still working.
Well, maybe
I used to tell people that when they said, so, after I'd been, got successful at ice, and then people were saying, well, what do you do? And I used to joke that I'm retired. I just get to do ice now. So I have never even thought about not doing it.
Mm. Well, that's the thing about doing something you enjoy and that you love to do, is that it's not a job at that point. It's just, you're just doing something you love.
Right.
And then, I guess if you do it too much, they can become a job, but that's when you got to take a step back.
It's kind of how February felt towards the end. I was doing so much that it was.
Yeah. But even then,
like work.
But even then, it's the job aspect is meeting the deadline. It's just feeling overwhelmed. You're still doing what you like to do.
Yeah.
You're not working for a company that you hate. You're not in some random kitchen doing something you don't really want to be doing, cooking food for some business. you're still doing what you
Well,
love
that was
to do.
kind of the trap when I first got good at carving ice. Was the local chapter told me I would never be able to do it in Lansing full time
Wow.
because there's not enough ice. So just keep cooking. I said, okay, I really like cooking. The country club I thought was a great job. I get to be very creative. Saw food I never saw before,
Yeah.
and we got to do crazy stuff. And when the club was slow, then I would just play around with food. I remember the guy that we were on a Saturday in the winter, and they're not playing golf, but somebody has to be there in case somebody comes in and wants something.
Right.
So we're there. Nobody's, doing anything. What do you want to do? Well, let's make it. You ever made a jelly roll? And so we made jelly rolls. 20 of them, trying to get them perfect. And
Wow.
so we just So what do you want to do today? I don't know. You ever sculpted salt dough? I don't even know what that is. So we look it up, and so it was a great job. So I liked doing it. So they told me I couldn't carve it full time. I'll be happy doing it part time, and I'll keep playing with all this.
Are you a pretty good cook now?
Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you go to school for that?
I did not.
No, you just learned from experience.
Yeah, on the job.
Wow.
I picked the chef's brain, and I was a member of the Chefs Association, so I learned through these guys. And
How difficult is it now to break through as a chef that hasn't gone to like culinary school?
I don't know. Do they still have chefs?
I would think so.
A lot of places don't. Yes, they do. A lot of places have gotten away.
Yeah, I know that. Have you ever been to Bodie's in Lansing?
I have not.
It's downtown, right next to Omar's. Bodie's is like a 5-star restaurant. I give it a 5-star. It's my favorite restaurant. I in fact went to St. Elmo's in Indianapolis not too long ago, and it's supposed to be this great steakhouse. Like the night before when we were there, Bon Jovi was there. It's like this famous restaurant, and the steak and the shrimp and everything wasn't as good as Bodie's here in Lansing. I'm a huge critic of steak, so I give Bodie's a 5-star. But I believe they have a chef too, and their chef
I'm
is
sure
amazing.
they do then.
Yeah.
They're just not like it's not like it was when I was doing it.
Right. Yeah. Now they just kind of hire whoever and train them. And
Well, a lot of stuff is done is frozen or
right.
reheated.
Yeah. Yeah. The quality of food has definitely gone down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now that's I'm not going to go there. I think that's we're talking in life in general. People's attention spans are so short.
Yeah.
I want to get good at ice. Well, it took me a year, and I was doing a couple dozen. How quickly do you want to get good at it?
A year is not that long though. Like to get good at
But
something,
I mean, people
in a year,
want to take one class and be good like
right,
you.
Right. That's true. That is true.
If I'm going to do a podcast, will I go out and buy all this stuff to start with, or I'll start with something
Yeah.
and work up to, like you say, you're still looking for.
Yeah. I'm always looking to make it better. So there's still equipment I'm always looking for, but yeah, you always got to start from somewhere, and you don't need to, go buy the most expensive tools or what gadgets to make it easy at the beginning. I mean, just try it out, see if you like it. And if you truly like it, then you'll invest.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's how it was. Well, I didn't have the money to buy.
Right.
So I always had a wish list. And so
Right.
when you have a really good month, then you get one thing on your wish list.
Yeah.
So you just start accumulating things.
It makes you work harder too, because then you're like, okay, now I want that.
Yeah, there's always something.
There's always something.
Well, there's just too much. It's too easy to find stuff. Now you can't. You're scrolling on Facebook. Hey, we see you looked at some shirts. We found some other shirts you might like, or
Yeah.
you were looking at tools. How about these recommendations for you, Scott? Yeah. So it's too easy to get distracted, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So easy. I know oftentimes, like whenever I'm like editing a podcast or something, I'll get on Facebook for a minute and then I'm like, crap, what am I doing? I need to get back.
Yeah. You get into those woodworking videos on
Yeah.
YouTube. And
then you're down a rabbit hole.
yeah. Where did those 3 hours go?
Oh boy. So is there anything else you want to, we're literally an hour into this podcast.
Wow.
Yeah, time flies. Is there anything else you want to talk about on the podcast? Want to bring up, promote?
Well, you kind of ask what else I do. So I have been in ministry as a member of Mount Hope. I was there for
Okay.
a long time.
The giant Mount Hope Church?
The giant Mount Hope Church.
Okay.
And Gilead Healing Center.
Okay.
And praying with people and ministering with people. You mentioned iron sharpening iron a while ago. That's a Bible verse.
Yeah.
So I go there on Thursdays for it's called Iron Hour, based on that verse, where we pray for people. And so ICE has allowed me to do some of those things because the hours are flexible. So,
okay.
So I got to carve at midnight because I took off to go do something else. Then I can do that. I've got the flexibility to do that. So
right.
I haven't. It's very humbling to know that I've helped people like you, like this podcast is just coming to talk. So I'm thinking I'm going to come here and talk about myself for an hour. How narcissistic are you?
Is it difficult?
I love talking about ice. I don't think it's talking about me so much.
No, it's not.
Right. I'm talking about ice. And so it's just my experience with it, I guess.
Yeah.
So I know that I have helped people kind of launch out and start doing their own dream instead of just pipe dreaming about it, trying to take those next steps. I'm just humbled when I find out that I hear somebody quit their job and is now doing photography or whatever.
Right.
And I feel like I have some part in that because I shared part of my story.
Well, it's important.
And I think it was important that it was so hard in the beginning that people can say, well, if he could do it.
Yeah, I could do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's important for people to hear stories like yours, to know that, like, you know, something like that is possible, because a lot of people have that family member who pulls them aside, like, hey, man, you need to get a job. You know, your wife is working a 5 to 9 job or 9 to 5 job, and you're at home carving ice. You know, you're not making any money.
In those days, I wasn't carving ice. I was just kind of like the stay-at-home dad.
So, you know, it's just there's always that person, you know, who is a negative Nancy and wants to tell you what you should do. And there's hardly ever somebody saying, hey, chase your dream. You know, one day you will be successful.
I did have one of those senior chefs that was always in my corner. And every time I saw him, if there was a newspaper article, he had clipped it out, laminated it, was giving it to me and giving me a big pat on the back.
Oh,
and keep
cool.
going. Yeah, I had one guy that was Chef Walter Pearson that was in my corner.
That's very cool. And I think it's important to have somebody like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, I mean, the negative feedback for anything is, there's always more negative feedback than there is positive with anything.
Well, especially in those early days, you know, people are going to critique my ice. And so I just learned to say, you don't like what it looks like? Come back in a half hour and see what it looks like then. Maybe you'll like it then. It'll have changed. It'll have melted some. Maybe you'll like the shape of the horse's nose then. Maybe you'll come back in a while.
How dare somebody criticize the way an ice sculpture looks? That's difficult. How dare they?
Well, like you said, it's just, you got to take it, I guess. It's never really, I don't think it's really bothered me. I'm sure it has, but I don't think that I try to dwell on it too long.
Yeah, because it's not going to affect anything at the end of the day. You're still going to do what you do.
And so I try to embrace, okay, you don't like the horse. So I try to look at the picture and say, what's wrong with it? Well, maybe he does look more like a donkey than a horse. And maybe he does need to, so it does help you in if you can stay away from what they're saying, how they're saying it to what they're saying.
Right.
Because they're not trying to be helpful, but they can be
in a critical way.
Yeah. So, yeah, I probably could sit here and talk with you all day, David, about ice and experiences.
I think I could talk to you all day too. You're just super laid back and easygoing, and we had a rough start to this, so you know, like, I think that kind of helped break the ice. No pun intended.
So I'm grateful and I'm thankful for how we got here and where I'm at, and so it just I'm shocked when it just sneaks up behind me and overwhelms me when I remember some things, or a memory gets triggered, or it's still that coming and open the garage door and seeing stuff. It just was on a list, but in my mind is that stuff's so expensive. I'll never have that stuff.
Yeah.
And then now to see it, that impossible stuff,
and
so much of it. Oh my gosh! I got to pinch myself.
You got to take pride in your successes, because if you don't, then that's when you lose appreciation for things.
And so I've been cleaning out my office because I've got,
Because you're retiring.
well, I've got too much stuff, and so I'm trying to get rid of, my both of my parents are gone, and so we cleaned out the house. My parents were from the Depression era, and so they had kept everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are lots of memories there. So I'm cleaning out with my sisters, and I said, I don't really want everything. I need anything. I've got the memory. I don't need to have the thing in my hand. But they kept feeling bad that I wasn't taking anything, so they were putting stuff on me. So I take it home, and so now I'm going through all that stuff, and then there's other things. And I think what started the cleaning out of my office was I'd filled up a filing cabinet, and I said, well, I need to get another filing cabinet. And and then I said, what for? What do you really have in there? And so I realized I had kind of become my parents, and I had every invoice over the last 30 years I'd ever written.
Wow.
Do you think you need 30 years of? So that kind of cleaned up a whole filing cabinet, and then some.
Wow.
And so that's where it started. I said, what else is in here that I'm not? So there's stuff we used to use for ice that, kind of is obsolete. We used to use a fiber optic wire. We'd freeze. We don't really use that anymore. We've got better stuff. And I said, why am I keeping them? Because they still work.
Right.
Someday.
Right. Someday.
I can hear my dad. Someday, or my mom. There'll come a day when you'll want one of those. And so I've just been cleaning stuff out. And so I have come across all these memories, newspaper articles, and
wow,
being in Lansing magazine, just crazy stuff. It's mind blowing to think, who is that guy?
Yeah.
That was you. That was you.
I would love to see like a series of some sort on your story of like when you started and how you managed to make some of these sculptures, and then like how the process throughout the years, and then how you make them now. I think that'd be interesting.
So that first carving, I had two tools. We had a Japanese handsaw.
Wow.
And a 6-prong ice pick.
Wow.
No power tools for I think in that first year. And then somebody gave me an article. I went to the Plymouth show in the early 80s, and I saw these guys pulling out these toolboxes, and I said, wow, here I am. But the big thing I took away from that first show was a chainsaw, a little electric Kmart, little Remington, but it made a big difference in what I was able to do. So, yeah, so that's where it started, and the ice wasn't as good as now because those machines weren't introduced yet. So,
right,
it's come along now. Guys have CNC machines to cut ice, and
wow,
yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah,
that's so wild, so wild.
How far it's come. So I was asked to do an article once for the. I was still involved with the Chefs Association, even though I wasn't cooking. So one of the guys said, well, was a chef, and technically ice is a culinary art. He should be a member, because there were other guys that said he doesn't belong here anymore. Anyway, I was around for a while, and they asked me to do an article on the history. So I did do some history, and so they say the first ice sculpture came from Escoffier, who created a swan for a dessert for a princess, I think.
Wow.
So
wow.
The first actual sculpture out of ice was used for a long time for refrigeration purposes, but that was the first sculpture. So how it's evolved, and how, the Russians were doing stuff with cannons that could fire in the 1800s. And
holy cow.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Wow. You should do, I'm always thinking, you should do like a little, I mean, it could go along the same lines of a YouTube channel, but maybe do like a little history lesson type thing on it. I mean, I didn't know any of that.
I'm sure there's a lot more of it. So
I'm sure.
When I started getting into it, I was just like, the article of the little news, or the editor of the little newspaper said, I got plenty of information. I said, well, just keep finding stuff. Sure you don't want more? So I took some highlights, and the first use of ice was by the Chinese. They say skimming it off in rice paddies for refrigeration like 3,000 years ago.
Wow.
I think it had to go back farther than that. Didn't the pharaohs send people to the mountains to get snow?
I think so. See, this is something you could dive into.
See, I'm going, aren't I? So let's just keep going,
got
David.
the
You don't have plans today, do you?
No, not at all. Oh, well,
this has been great.
it has been great. Thank you for doing this, and I'm again really sorry about the beginning.
I'm glad.
The thing is, I was actually just looking at my schedule this morning, and for some reason, I didn't see you on there at 1:00. I seen that I have one later today, and I was like, oh, I only have one today, and I for some reason didn't see you. I don't know why, but then
I kind of wondered if something had happened because when I was looking, I don't know that you sent me the thing. I didn't ever like confirm, or I didn't.
Okay.
Maybe I was supposed to send it back to you.
Um,
But I know that I had an issue and I had to. Well, my old phone when they went to 5G became a brick. And so, everything didn't switch over like it said. Everything will switch over when you get this app.
right.
Where's the rest of my contacts and all my? And so I kind of wondered if it got lost because that happened after we talked about doing this.
Oh, okay.
The phone died and I had to get a new one. So,
Yeah, I don't know. It's strange because I know my wife asked me yesterday. She's like, "How many podcasts? Or when's your next podcast?" And I was like, "Tomorrow evening." And then I looked, and that's the only one I remember seeing. So when you showed up, and she's like, "Somebody's here to do the podcast," I'm like, "What? What? No way!"
I kind of thought that when she answered the door, like, "Hello, are you? What are you selling?"
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. It's and it worked out. It really did. It just added a stress factor to the beginning of it, and I'm like running around. But yeah, it was a good episode, and I enjoyed talking to you.
You handled it well. You were ready.
Thanks.
I can't do it now. Come back later.
Yeah,
Get the heck out of here.
that was my first initial reaction. I'm like, I think I should reschedule, but then I'm like, no, I don't want to reschedule.
and so then it kicks in. And so why can't I do it right now?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I was just in the middle of mowing. It's not that big of a deal.
Right. We're just downstairs. Not like we got to go somewhere.
Right, exactly. So, and you're laid back. You handled it pretty professionally as well. So,
like I said, I've done it. So hopefully, if it happens to me again, that people will treat me that way. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you got to have grace with things, right?
Yeah.
I mean, things happen. It is what it is.
So I guess that's something I'm trying to, aside from the ice, that as a person, I'm trying to. People are so negative everywhere now. It seems that, but everybody's got good in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Can I find the good?
Right.
Can I get past all the rhetoric and get to the gold?
Yeah.
So
I could talk about that for hours.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had a lot of negative feedback on an episode that I just recently put out, and it's kind of crazy too, because like this podcast I've used as a way to amplify other people's stories, to help other local business owners. I've had, people come on and share their stories. Like the first time somebody ever came on to a platform to share her story was she was raped. And like, so this was the first time she shared it was on my platform.
Wow.
And I was honored that she, was able to do that on here. And, so I've used it in so many different ways for people to get their stories out, for people to help other people, to help like local artists. I've talked to so many different people, but the minute I talk to a politician, oh my gosh, the storm of hate flew my way. It was crazy. I couldn't believe it. All the negative comments that people, talking crap about, my intentions and like, me, and just, I'm like, are you serious? Like, you don't know me. It's crazy. But the thing is like doing the podcast, I've been able to talk to people and like see the good in people. And, a lot of people have the same goal. We're all the same, and we're more alike in so many different ways than we're not.
Right.
And to let something so divisive divide us, like it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So the negativity out there is, I don't know. It seems greater than what it is, but I really think that more people have good in them than not.
Right.
So.
And everybody has it in there somewhere.
Exactly.
No matter how much nonsense they talk, it's in there somewhere.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, like in that situation with the whole politics thing, I think a lot of people just they have an idea of what they think is right, and then they want to just attack it because they don't agree with that situation. But really, they could be a good mom, good dad, whatever it is, but they just for some reason when it's politics, they can't just look the other way. And
well, politicians in general have not made it easy.
No, they have not. No,
So-
they have not. No.
Well, that's almost a good thing that it's got negative, that it stirred something up. I think there's good that can come out of that.
Absolutely. A lot came out of it, actually. A lot of good. I immediately, because this is the thing, like a lot of people, or at least people's natural instincts when something negative like that happens is to want to just like back off, or shut down or engage. They want to do either. I didn't do anything. Like I just sat there. I'm like, I'm going to watch what happens. And I got a lot of people attacking me. But the thing is I'm like, this is good. People attacking me is good because it's whether they think it's good or not, it's bringing attention to me. And for
stirring something up.
It's stirring something up. And for like a podcast or like a content creator, when people are focused on you, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good for business. Not that I wanted the negativity, but when people are focusing on you, then it now brings attention like from everybody. Everybody's like, what's this about? And then they go to your platform and then they listen to other episodes and they start following you and people start engaging more. And I think that's good. I think it's good for people to engage, whether, you agree with something or you don't agree with something.
Right.
So that's why I like this podcast, because people can come on and share their story, and then other people can engage, and yeah,
it's good.
It's good. It's good for conversation. It's good for people.
So don't back down.
Don't back down.
We're not trying to stir things up. I know that I have been accused of that too, and I said I'm not trying to stir something up. I'm trying to help you.
Yeah.
I see a problem.
Yeah.
And I want to help it, but they think you're poking at it.
Right.
So it's hard to just keep yourself from getting hard then.
Yeah.
And
well, I mean, what I realized in like a situation like that is that us as humans are weak and we can't handle differing opinions. But that's when like a conversation like this, like a podcast, is important, because then you can have people on and discuss things, and then you can, I don't know, you can, like by discussing things, then it kind of normalizes things, and hopefully through conversation, everybody can come to a mutual understanding or just a mutual respect of each other. And I think that's important.
Yeah, definitely.
And yeah, I don't remember where I was going with that. So. But yeah, it's important to help other people.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you're doing that with your whole religious background and everything, right? Like by praying, praying for other people. And I mean, if it's not helping them, it's helping you, right?
Yeah.
If they don't find it helpful, rather, then it's helping you.
I think so many people, oftentimes when something happens, nobody's had it as bad as me, or I'm the only one.
Well, that's a victim's mentality.
Yeah. And so it's not even really ministering to people as much as it is just pointing something out that other people have had issues. And I've been through stuff. You've been through stuff. Everybody's going to go through stuff.
Yeah.
It's not about the going through stuff. It's how you go through stuff.
Right.
And
it's how you handle the situation.
Keeping your eyes on the prize, I guess. Just like so with me with ice, I had so many negative Nancy's. But in some ways, I know that drove me actually to, oh really? You think I can't do it? I'm going to show you. And so it kind of helped me, I think, in a way. And so I try to help people with that too. That you've got somewhere to go. You have something valuable in you.
Yeah.
And other people need to know about it. And if you stay here and focus on this, you'll never get to the good stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's more of just trying to help people through, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like you said, someone to come alongside and saying, oh, you've got value, you're worth it.
Yeah. Sometimes that's all you need. Somebody just to give you a little nudge.
Yeah.
And then you're like, wow, I am capable of doing that.
So that's kind of how I feel about the City Club, that they gave me the, not a little nudge, like kick in the pants and get going then. Let's do it.
Right.
I didn't want it to happen like this. Well, you could have chose, but you didn't. So here's what we're going to do. Okay. Well, so now I'm grateful.
Right.
And I was so afraid to tell my wife. I got fired. Oh my gosh. Forced resignation, fired, whatever you want to call it. So when I called her, and she just started screaming and hollering, said, all right, it's about time you got out of that place. I can't believe, she was so happy. And I was so afraid. She said, I've wanted you to leave there for so long. It just,
wow.
Because I was working 90 hours a week.
Holy cow.
Trying to make something happen. I didn't know I was working that many hours a week and trying to make their dreams come true, and it just wasn't happening. Just couldn't put in enough hours to do what they wanted. And so
that's the unfortunate thing about like businesses, like especially like I mean, I don't know, the country club's probably a pretty big business, but like I work for General Motors, and like seeing the corporation's like goals, and it never ends. It never dials back at all. They always just want more and more and more, and then you work harder and harder and harder, and then by the time you know it, you don't have time to do your own things, your own passions, and then you're neglecting things, you're neglecting your family, and it just becomes this big cycle.
Yeah. How long have you been there?
Almost 9 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there enjoyment there?
No. Well, I mean, there is a little bit, like the people. I love the people that I work with. I have good relationships with them, but as far as like the work, I mean, the work is not bad. It's not hard. I mean, it is in certain aspects. Like it's hard on your body because of the repetition.
Yeah.
But, and I don't know. It's just, I guess it's the corporatization of everything. They just always want more and more and more. Nothing's ever good enough. And, their profit for the next year always has to be higher than this year. And it's just, so then we got to make more cars, and it's always just more and more and more. More Saturdays, more hours.
What's the solution then?
There isn't one. The solution would be to quit and find something you love doing.
I mean, we all need goals. That's what keeps us going.
Yeah.
You need to set goals to keep improving or whatever. So there is some truth, a good truth in that they're always looking for more, but then so where's but
it's at the expense of their workers.
Right. So there's some kind of a disconnect where it's becomes the bad thing.
Right. Yeah, I don't know if there is an answer to it. I think that, I guess for me, it would be less hours. I work me as hard as you want for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. But then after that, it's like you're cutting into my time, my family time, my podcast time, like my responsibilities. So I don't know. I just think that, like right now, for instance, we work 9 hours every day, Monday through Friday, and then every other Saturday for the most part, unless there's a part shortage or something. But then like that's not good enough. So now what they're doing is they cut back your breaks. So what they do is they hired all these people to come in, and they call them tag breaks. So you have somebody in your team who goes around and gives each individual person a break while the line is still running.
Oh.
So instead of everybody taking a break together, now you have individuals taking breaks by themselves while everything's still going. So like seeing that, because that's relatively new. Seeing the way things have changed in that aspect since I hired in is like, this is insane. Like it's just going to keep going and going and going. It never slows down.
So it makes you feel more and more like a part instead of a person.
Yeah, absolutely. You're just
interchangeable part. And just plug one in. And
absolutely.
So you just reminded me of my first job. I worked at an imported car place.
Oh.
And it was a family-owned little place over by the airport.
Okay.
Great job as a 17-year-old. They taught me to drive a stick.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, Triumphs and Jags.
Oh, sweet.
But they always took a coffee break every morning. Everybody, big circle, sent out for donuts and coffee and shoot the breeze. It was great. But it created a atmosphere of family in the whole place, and so it just
Right.
worked together. But even though the guy that worked next to me, this old mechanic, was so cranky, even even this for him kind of, I don't know his story, but so even the old cranky guy kind of softened up because of
Right.
this. So
Yeah, I think it's important to like. I mean, that's one thing our coworkers talk about is like not taking breaks together. Like that's something that people look forward to, like sitting at the break table and
Right.
just like sitting across from each other and eating a snack and talking about
Right.
your previous night or whatever. And it's
so if you're there on your own, you're going to be on Facebook,
yeah,
YouTube, or something by
yeah,
yourself.
yeah. You're disconnected from
Everything.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's good.
We got enough of that.
And I think that's what was important about COVID was that it forced everything to slow down. And so, a lot of people then realize that, okay, now I want to like pursue art, or I want to pursue, whatever their dream was or hobby was, or maybe they realize I don't like working at this place. And so I'm going to go work somewhere else. I think it was important.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you ready to wrap this up?
Okay.
All right, cool. We've been going an hour and 25 minutes.
Well.
Yeah.
Okay.
So where can people find you? They can find you on social media?
Mm-hmm. Miller Ice Sculptures.
Okay.
Got a web page.
Okay.
Facebook page.
Okay.
Instagram.
Nice.
Yeah.
And soon a YouTube and,
soon
possibly a TikTok.
Possibly a TikTok.
All right. I'm
going to have to check into that stuff. I'm not too old for any of that.
No, you're not.
I'm not too old.
Well, thanks for doing this. Everything will be in the show notes.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.